Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Haven't seen a road trip thread in a while. My workout partner was a trucker for about 16 years. Started out in that line of work straight out of high school. Needless to say, he's told me some pretty strange stories during the few years that I've known him. He said he never would have brought the topic up if I hadn't told him about some of the weird things I'd seen on the road during college, driving back and forth on the weekend. First story. At the time, he's hauling inventory for his current employer. Same route every night. 2 hours there, 2 hours back. 12-hour shifts, 3 loads hauled each night. Friend finishes the last haul, gets back to the distribution hub. Traffic was good that night, gets back about 45 minutes early. Since he can't haul anything at that time, gets to go home early and he can't wait. As he's getting out of the truck, the supervisor approaches. Says they have one more load to haul. Must be there by 6:30 a.m. Friend tells him there's no way. That's a 2-hour drive, and he's only got 45 minutes to make the trip. Super says he understands, but he needs him to leave immediately. The recipient of the haul is apparently raising hell because the order was missed earlier. My friend is upset now, but picks up the load and begins the journey. 30 minutes into the trip, gets on the radio and confirms with Super that this is bullshit. Super's still apologetic. Friend says he remembers. His GPS had his arrival time at 7:39 a.m. The last thing he remembers is still being pissed. Friend comes to, 10 minutes away from his destination. No recollection as to how he got there. Friend says the clock said 6:17 a.m. Sorry, the format is messed up. I'm on the phone. He's actually early? Radios to dispatch, confirms that the tracker on his truck indicates he's less than 10 miles out from drop-off. Dispatch wants to know how. Friend says he wants to know how. Looks at GPS, which he always resets each trip to track mileage info. Top speed was 67 miles per hour. Friend drops off the load and heads home. Was praised by both sides for being early, but everyone wants to know how. Friend has no clue. Friend eventually showed me GPS and top speed. Says he'll never clear that trip. Friend still has no idea WTF happened. Says he made that trip every night for 2 years. There's no way he made the journey in less than 45 minutes. Friend had Super show him the route that the truck's tracker indicated he took. About 30 minutes into the journey, Friend's blip on radar disappears. This wasn't unusual on cloudy days, and sometimes the equipment simply didn't function correctly. However, when his blip reappeared, he was 10 minutes from his destination. Have a few more if anyone is interested. Same friend as before. Up north, just finished dropping off load. Terrible snow, total blizzard. Around 2 a.m. when my friend begins to head home. Took over an hour for the receiver to unload trailer contents. Roads in the city were bad. Highways were worse. Friend believes he must be the first person back on the highway. No tire tracks on snow-covered road. Can't see any sign of where the roadside begins or ends. Tired. Starts home anyway. The highway is pretty much straight, uses rumble strips to tell when he's gone too far right or left. Said he did 55 miles per hour the entire time he was on the highway. This alone freaked me out, but he said he'd just wait until he felt the vibrations, then adjust accordingly. Friend eventually ends up on the same back roads he used on his way up. Roads aren't as bad off the main highway. Snow is just starting to stick. Can make out road if he really pays attention. Paying such attention to his driving, he almost runs through a 4-way intersection. Catches himself and begins to slow down. Was going to look for oncoming cars and continue to slowly cruise through if he saw none. Never stop in snow like that, he told me. You'll get stuck. Just keep rolling slowly forward. As his lights illuminate the intersection, notices something isn't right. Someone standing in the middle of the intersection. Can't make them out due to snowfall. Friend said he'd seen enough weird shit at this point to think to himself, oh boy, here we go. As he nears, he is able to make out the figure to be an elderly man in a pair of whitey-tighties. The man has his back to the approaching truck and doesn't turn around even though the sound of the engine is enough to alert him of my friend's arrival. Said you could clearly see the outline of the old man's spine and other bones protruding from beneath his leathery skin as well. Friend immediately thinks that some poor old man suffering from Alzheimer's has wandered out from the safety of his home during a snowstorm and has gotten lost. Friend grabs his phone while pulling up alongside the old man and can tell from this angle that he has his arms crossed in front of his chest and appears to be shivering. He rolls down his window as he comes to a stop and tells the man that he's here to help. My friend said just as his hand touched the handle of his door to open it, the man immediately turns his face toward him, and he knew it was time to leave. Friend says the guy had 2 black eyes, not like the creepy children, but like someone had punched him in both of his eyes, and the bruises had been given enough time to blacken. He also said that the guy's mouth was a black pit that stretched across the entirety of the lower half of his face. He said it appeared to run all the way up to the bottom of his nose, and all the way down to what would be the bottom of a normal person's chin. From the moment the thing had begun to turn around, my friend said he could tell it was screaming. But what was odd is that he didn't actually hear the scream until it had finished rotating its head and was looking directly at him. He described it as the most bone-chilling thing he'd ever heard. We do a lot of hunting where we are from, and you'll occasionally run across a bobcat screaming in the woods. He said it was something akin to that, but so much more. He simply had no words strong enough to describe it. End. Friend lives to tell me the tale years later.
I live out in Arizona. Get out of work early. Boss fell down and pulled something, so he let us leave. Instead of going home, I take a drive out to the desert off of the highway to relax. Pick related. Sunsets out there are so serene. Lose track of time. It's close to dusk. Parked my Jeep on this hill overlooking a valley. I see a van bumping down the dirt road towards me. Weird. It's usually pretty desolate out here. Its headlights shine on me and it stops. I'm still a little baked, so I'm like, hey, you need help with something. Are you like, stuck? Can see the silhouette of the driver. He's not moving. Just sitting still and keeping the lights on me. Get the, this is probably how I'll die vibe and leave. As I'm coming off of the hill, the van is right on my ass, flashing its headlights at me and hitting my bumper. WTF. Why? I floor it, but there are no real roads out here, so I'm bouncing around like a bouncy castle. If I hadn't taken my Jeep, I would have been stuck. He keeps hitting my bumper, trying to spin me out. If he does, I do have a .22 Magnum I keep for wildlife, but I'd rather not get into some no country for old men shit. Finally see the highway, floor it doing almost 65. I'm still bouncing up and down like an amusement park ride. He keeps on my ass for about halfway, then stops and hits reverse going back into the desert. Do 80 until I get home. Circle the block a few times to make sure I wasn't followed. Tell my girlfriend's dad you were a state trooper, and he's like, yeah man, people do tons of illegal shit out there. Drug trafficking to dumping bodies.
I have a few experiences which I could relate if you don't mind reading through a non-Greentext story. When I was young, my mother and I used to take long nighttime drives through the countryside while visiting my aunt in British Columbia. My affinity for the strange and disturbing might be partially attributed to these nocturnal adventures. My mother is the adventurous sort and loves nature more than anything, and I enjoyed the strange sort of emptiness and solitude which the night afforded me. Sometimes we would listen to the radio, but mostly we just looked out at the road winding in front of us. Nighttime in the country is an awesome sight to behold for someone like me who spent the majority of the year in the lamppost-lighted suburbs of Montreal, for it is so dense as to obscure nearly all detail not directly illuminated by artificial means. I used to try and imagine, for my own entertainment, what strange and terrifying secrets lay just out of view of the headlights, or half spied in the shadows. It was a cheap thrill to face such uncertainty, comforted by my position in the car which, in the end, offered no real protection from what could have been out there save for its mobility. One night my mother and aunt stopped the car just off to the side of the road and told me that we were going for a nighttime hike. Now I admit that the loss of comfort given to me by the car may have exaggerated my perception of events, but I can tell you that everything I tell you actually happened. Now, don't ask me why my aunt thought that this was a good idea. She was always more of a person of impulse than one of foresight. She was the kind of person who had a bear as a pet in the 40s and confronted escaped lunatics in her time as a cleaner for an asylum. It was approximately 2 minutes into the walk that we discovered the burned-out remains of a bullet-torn Volkswagen Beetle in a ditch to our left. I told them that now would be a prudent time to turn back, but they told me that the wreckage looked rusted and had probably been there for weeks or years. This did not reassure me, nor did the discovery of that car's door some 200 meters down the trail. I comforted myself, as all boys, and for that matter many men do, by finding a heavy stick and holding it tight. It was about 5 minutes or so later that my mother walked closer to me and told me in a hushed tone that someone was following the same trail behind us. I wondered if I were capable of making any use out of my damp stump against a grown man should anything happen, but even at this young age I knew that I didn't stand a chance, and neither did my mother and elderly aunt. The three of us slowed down the uphill path so as to try and turn back before going any further away from our vehicle, but just as we turned back, the man darted into the woods. All I could make out was a worn green rain poncho. This despite the fact that it was not raining and had not rained that day. We made it back safely to the car and left in a hurry. To this day, my mother does not admit that the late-night excursion was a bad idea. I have more if you want, or MITZU. Okay. When I was 13, I helped my aunt move from her home in British Columbia to my hometown near Montreal. As I have already stated, my aunt was impulsive and quite adventurous, both of which contributed to our coming into contact with many strange people. I believe it was somewhere in the prairies that we attracted the unwanted attention of a strange man in a Zeller's diner. My mother was the first to notice his stare and alerted us to his presence. I don't remember much of his appearance other than his eyes. They were the sickly pale irises of a man with cataracts, but his glare was too focused for him to have been so afflicted. He never took his eyes off us, not even to drink his coffee. In retrospect, I do not recall him staring at any of us in particular, just that we were being watched closely by a grayish man who made no effort to conceal his interest and did not look away once noticed. We thought it quite creepy, but nothing more, and left without any incident. When I say we, I mean to say my mother and I, for my aunt just felt sorry for who she believed to be a lonely man. I would not remember the incident if it were not for the fact that, later in the evening and many miles away, we saw him again in a room opposite ours at the motel we were staying at. Still, my aunt would not have thought ill of the man had he not still been observing us at the threshold of his room, his door inched open, wearing nothing but an open bathrobe. We called the front desk, who must have called the police. Once the police left, the man could still be seen staring at our room through his blinds. I did not get much sleep that night and barricaded the front door, just in case. We left early in the morning, not wanting to be near that person 1 moment longer than necessary, and as we pulled out of the parking lot, we saw him run out of his room, still in his dressing gown and giving up after a few feet. More to come, and I assure you, all of it true. This happened to me when I was too young to remember, but I am assured of its authenticity, though I take her interpretation of it with a grain of salt. When I was a baby, my mother traveled with me on a Greyhound bus. Now being an attractive woman and having traveled quite often on long bus rides, she was no stranger to creeps or even the mentally unbalanced bothering her. On this occasion, however, she tells me the person who assaulted her was not merely deranged. A strange old woman had come up to her and, acting quite sweetly initially, asked to see me. My mother felt that something was off about this woman and said no. As she refused, the woman's eyes, I am told, turned milky, and she began screeching and clawing wildly after me. Thankfully, she was stopped by fellow passengers and escorted off the bus, though she never ceased screaming. To this day, my mother is convinced that the woman was an energy vampire. Like I said, I take her interpretation of the events with a grain of salt. How is my prose, by the way? I'm writing this down from memory, and it seemed natural as I was writing, but now that I'm reading it again, it seems a bit ponderous. As a French Canadian, I don't get the chance to write in English often, so if /x/ prefers it, I could try to simplify these down to Greentext.
I have one. B6. Family of 7, our parents are rabbits. Going to Croatia after years of not going. We used to go there monthly before. My dad is self-employed. There's this place where they make delicious split roasted lamb in the hills. It's just a minor detour off the motorway. Totally worth it. Get lost since Dad forgot how to get there. Hills get foggy, plus we're on a serpentine. Get deep in a forest. The older brothers saying stupid Silent Hill and other horror reference jokes and shit that I don't even get at the time. Suddenly a goddamn hellhound jumps in front of the car. Dad brakes like mad. Wolf takes a glance at us and jumps into the woods on the other side of the road. I was in the back, so I just saw a large black thing. The people in the front seat say it had glowing amber eyes. Oh, and even I saw that it was pitch black and the size of a smaller horse. It was unbelievably black. The white fog didn't take effect on it. I don't even know how to explain this. My dad stopped like 4 meters away, and the road was blurry because of the fog, but not the wolf. I don't know if that's understandable. The fog cleared up minutes after, even though it was there for like 2 hours before, and we found our way back to the motorway. My dad insisted that he didn't make any wrong turns. On the way back, my dad, secretly, since none of the family wanted another encounter with that thing, made the detour and easily found his way there, seemingly making the same turns. And I just realized that we were a family of 6, since my little bro wasn't born back then, but I'm too lazy to go back.
I used to go on a lot of road trips with a couple friends when we were 18, 20. We were just a bunch of depressed and directionless NYC kids who didn't go to college. It may seem stupid, but getting out of the city was a nice form of escapism. We'd split gas money, buy snacks, and just drive aimlessly all night long. I have a couple of stories. My friend Al and I were driving in northeastern New York State. We reach an intersection. Al asks me to pick a direction. I chose right. We drive on a winding road through the countryside with no houses and no cars. After about 20 minutes, we hit an intersection. It's the same one we started at with the very same gas station on our left. Whatever, no big deal. So we go forward this time. Road climbs up a mountain. Our ears are popping from the air pressure, so we open the windows. We came down a winding road and hit an intersection. And there's that gas station on our left. WTF. Maybe we're idiots. We go left this time. We're driving for almost an hour and decide to put on the radio. Weird jazz music. Feels good, man. The song fades out and there's nothing but silence. Here comes that same damn intersection again. Al and I are worried that we're in purgatory. We turn around and the road is exactly as it was when we first hit the intersection. We're weirded out the whole way home. Another time, Al, Mike, my GF, and I are driving on Long Island. We drive on Sweet Hollow Road. New York friends and kids from Long Island know that Sweet Hollow Road has supposedly been haunted dating back to the days of horse-drawn carriages. It's a dangerously winding road. Lots of accidents. People also say that a ghostly woman runs across the road and people get into accidents swerving to avoid her. No ghosts, but so damn foggy we can only see a few feet in front of the car. Dark, foggy, winding road surrounded by trees. Spooky stuff. The car is basically crawling so we don't run into anyone or anything we can't see. We eventually make our way to the equally spooky Mount Misery Road. At the end of Mount Misery, there's a dead end blocked by a log wall. Al and I step out of the car to smoke. We walk over to the logs and hear someone on the other side shout, "Get out!" We nope right back into the car and drive out to Orient Point, where we smoke and skip stones. Good memories. On a lighter note, when you drive around Long Island, there are some places that will make you feel like you are time traveling. Lots of 80s fashion, dudes driving El Caminos, fast food places using their old designs. There's even a Burger King that still makes rodeo burgers, circa Wild Wild West, now in theaters starring Will Smith. On a more grim note, once my GF and I drove past a car that crashed into a pole. We pulled over to check if they needed help. Driver was just staring into space. A girl in the passenger seat is just rambling about birds. We ask if they're okay. Driver says, "Yup. Should we call 911? I already did. You should just leave. Just keep driving." He never looked at us once. We slowly drove away. Checked back a few hours later and the car was gone. I hope they were okay.
This one was years back. Went to go see the Cat in the Hat. I was with my friend and his mom on our way back, getting off the exit ramp surrounded by forest. As soon as we turn into the ramp and head down, the tire is flat. Oh Spaghettios.rar. Pull over to side of the ramp, fuck man. I'm literally 5 minutes from my house. Friendly person pulls over in a big van. Asks if we need help. Try to change tire or something. Cop eventually come. While we're talking to the cop, I looked behind him and saw this guy walking out of the tree line just staring at us. Wearing a camo jacket and shit. Nothing a hunter would wear. No orange whatsoever, and not to mention it's like 8 at night in the winter. He quietly walks back into the woods. I don't think anyone else noticed him. The really scary thing is that I knew something was weird for him to be there. But after reading this creepy threads about how people put shit in the roads, fuck man, I think this guy was trying to Chris Chan and or kill us. Holy shit. I just remembered that someone was killed in the area and that a hooker was killed as well. Holy shit, man.
I'll bump with a story copied from another forum. Back in the winter of 2001, my youngest son and I were on our way from Boise, Idaho to Medford, Oregon. We had taken a car trailer to his old place in Boise in order to haul his non-running Jeep to his new place in Medford. We hit an area of heavy snow in the southern Cascades around 2 a.m. It took 45 minutes or so to get down the mountain. We had, of course, been drinking coffee to stay alert. About 25 miles west of the pass, it became obvious that the last few quarts of coffee had to be drained. We stopped at a wide spot in the road near a summer tourist haunt, deserted in winter. There is a gas station and ice cream joint on the west side of the road, closed this time of year, and no town or settlement within 30 miles. This is tall timber country and unsettled. Across the road is a small parking area for the ice cream joint. It is paved and about 200 feet wide and 80 feet deep. I pulled in, and as I stepped out with 45 on my hip, it occurred to me in a flash that grabbing the 590 Mossy would be good. As we walked to the far end of the area to be well off the road, the hair on my arms and the back of my neck stood on end. The area directly to our front was open with a depth of 50 yards and a width of 100 yards. The night was clear and cold, 8-10 inches of snow on the ground, and with a moon almost full, so we could see quite well. While standing and taking a leak, with sun about 15 feet to my right, I saw, as if springing from the earth in front of us across the open area, 10 or 12 creatures moving rapidly back and forth in sort of a thatch weave pattern. These things are not human men, were close to 7 foot tall, thin, bipedal with long arms, medium-length gray fur, and damned fast on their feet. I brought the shotgun up and slid the safety off, as my son was drawing his .45. I don't know if I can adequately explain the overwhelming feeling of menace, but here goes. I had been operating on pure instinct since I had stepped from the pickup. The rotten feeling hit me a split second before the things arrived. The feeling, instinct, was that we were prey and subject to a very bad death, and to be slaughtered and eaten, not a logical process. Gut feeling and massively overwhelming. As they were moving about in front of us, more appeared and mixed among them, all the while running about fast in front of us. Son and I were backing toward the truck. I would not present my back to them, and some of them peeled off right and left in an encirclement movement. They were rolling in fast from the sides now. I could smell and feel their presence. We got to the truck loaded on adrenaline and ready to kill, as we both knew we were in grave danger. We piled into the truck, locked doors. I had keys out and ready, as my butt neared the seat. I had the engine lit and transmission in gear and gas pedal mashed in one motion. Adrenaline is great stuff. As we fled, yes fled, something very close by let out a ululating scream of rage and pain. I believe one or more of the group had gotten really close to us in their pursuit, and I ran over the foot of one of them. Yeah, they were that close. We rolled onto the highway, and I told Son to watch the bed of the pickup as well as the trailer. He already was indexed to the rear with the shotgun. We hauled ass for at least 20 miles before the feeling of grave danger started to abate. The feeling that nailed both of us, as we discussed soon afterward, was one of being prey and soon to be slaughtered and eaten. I am not easily led, and neither believe or disbelieve all the Bigfoot, ghost, and werewolf stuff. In fact, I am skeptical. Son was speaking with a coworker about 6 months later who had grown up in Prospect, Oregon, about 30 miles south of Union Creek where the incident took place. He asked Jake if he had ever heard of any strange goings-on in the area. Jake went ashy white and pretty much retold the above tale. He says to avoid the place at night. A family friend, a 25-year retired cop, not given to flights of fancy and an excellent observer, had a tale very similar from a year before. I told my wife of this event, of course. She looked at me at the beginning as though I had developed a third eyeball in the center of my forehead. That was from shock. She did believe me, but did not wish to hear any details. She said the tale gave her chills. Me too, as I write this. The hair on the back of my neck and forearms is sticking up. I have not gone back to explore, and would not without a large group of shotgun and flamethrower-equipped men with me. Son and I are both sane, sober persons, and not taken to hysteria. We were wide, very wide awake as things transpired. We saw and smelled what was there. As a sidebar, neither of us heard footfalls from the creatures. They were silent until I heard one as we were getting the hell out of there. To my knowledge, and I have researched, there is nothing that matches these creatures, unless one considers old legends and folk tales of were creatures. To conclude, I have to fall back on Elmer Keith's famous line, "Hell, I was there. Best regards, Mike M."
So this happened a few years back. Friends and I decided to take a road trip to Tennessee because one of us came with the bright idea of, hey, let's go see Memphis. We are from Texas, and my friend that's driving wants to take her own route. Because apparently fuck GPS. Anyway, so we head out, and she plans to go through Arkansas. Halfway through Arkansas, we stop to get a bite to eat in a little backwater town. Does not seem too bad, plus there are 4 of us, which is me, the driver, which is a female, her boyfriend, and our mutual guy friend. It's like 11 at night, and we are just shooting the shit at a diner. We are talking when her boyfriend sees a couple of guys staring at us while we talk. At first, we ignored him when he brought it up because we thought he was screwing around with us. Half hour goes by and all of us have realized that he wasn't joking around. We pay our bill and hurry out of there because we are really creeped out. When we leave, we notice the guys come out of the diner also. Funny coincidence. So 10 minutes after we leave, somehow we get lost. Should have gotten a fucking GPS. We all check our phones and none of us have any mobile connections. Like we have a bar or 2 of reception, but no mobile internet, so our GPS can't find a signal or some shit. We are on a road with no other cars around, so we can ask for help or directions. Anyway, so we are all thinking we are fucked, so there isn't much we can do. Either we keep driving and somehow make our way to a main road, or maybe pull over and wait till morning. We all talk about it, and we take a vote. It turns out it's 3-1, so we decide to drive another 30 minutes. If after 30 minutes we didn't find anything, we would wait until morning. Half an hour later, we thought we might be near the main road, so we pulled over. It's about 3 in the morning, and we are all worn out. I'm the first one to knock out when what feels like a blink of an eye, I'm woken up by a knock on the window. I jumped and notice everyone was already waking up. My friend pulls the driver's side window down to see who it is. Lo and behold, it's the guy from Diner. She jumps, and we are all wondering what they're doing there. The guy bends down and says, "You all seem to look a little lost." "Yeah, we are. Somehow we got turned around and we couldn't make it back to the main road, so we decided to wait till morning." "Well, I think you'll best hurry and get out of here because bad things can happen." We all look at each other thinking, what the hell? "I bet. If you could tell us how to get back to the main road, then we will definitely be sure to be more careful and not let it happen again." "Good, because bad things have happened to people like y'all when they come round here." "Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit!" He looks back at his truck that's parked behind us and the brights come on. Well, Mystery solved on where his buddy is. My friend looks back at us, hoping we can tell her what to do. Her boyfriend mouths for us to go. The dude leans in closer. So I think y'all should leave. Now. We turn the car on, and a moment later, the trucks turns on too. We are all taking massive shits in our pants because we are freaking out. He smiles and says we'll make sure you'll leave, and hopefully we don't change our minds. He starts to walk towards the truck when my friends guns it. The car takes off. I turn back and see the truck's lights, and I can tell they're driving after us. A few seconds later, we hear gunshots from a rifle. WTF? Are they shooting at us? Her boyfriend looks back and says he saw a muzzle flash. Every few minutes, we can hear a gunshot. My friend is crying uncontrollably and trying to get us out of there. We are all hoping they don't decide to speed up because our car cannot take a hit. It's a small Toyota, for fuck's sake. After a while, we didn't hear a gunshot, so I turned back and didn't turn on the lights anymore. We take our first right, and 10 miles or so down, we find the main road. As soon as we got out, we drove back home. Fuck the road trip and Memphis. Fuck that road trip, and especially Arkansas. That was the worst experience of my life. None of us got any more sleep until we got back home. I don't want to take any more road trips after going through that. Sorry if this was a little long, but I added as much detail as I could remember.
Okay, this happened back in high school. Me, a friend, and then GF go out to drink. Finish around 1:30 to 2 o'clock. Driving home, friend in his car in front, me and GF in her car behind him. Enter a back road that leads us home. The road is a long stretch that goes on for a while. Upon entering the road, see a figure standing pretty much in the middle of the road, looked tall as fuck, maybe 6'5" or even 6'8", waving arms with what looked like suitcases on the ground near. Friend, in front of me, passes the person. As I drive to pass, my GF and I look out of the car to see who the hell this is. Tall lady wearing pink sweater, looked like she could have been Korean, but her face was messed up, like she was missing a bottom half of her jaw or something like that. Hard to explain, her face just looked real deformed, or things were missing that made a face a face. We pass her and WTF to each other. A couple seconds later, the phone rings. It's friend calling. Car in front of me. Did you just see that? What the fuck was that? I fucking don't know. Drive home, weirded out. Could have been anything, but I sometimes think it was our weird encounter with our own kind of grinning man. Look it up. Still think about it whenever I'm turning into that backload.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.